This is Jeremy Crit, and this is my video opinion for my last project, for Journalism 215 Multimedia Reporting, which is a project website. And I did my project website on University of Illinois Study Abroad Health and Safety. So the topic, I originally started thinking about it just because studying abroad, I did so last semester, and it was an unbelievable experience. I learned a lot about everything in the world. I could spend forever talking about it. But while I was abroad, I did spend a little bit of time in the hospital, and I'm fine, and it wasn't a huge deal, but it definitely wasn't the best experience. And I know with recent terrorist attacks around the world is not necessarily viewed as the safest place, outside of the United States for some people. And so I wanted to really just put out as much as I could about what, for University of Illinois students, what is available for health and safety, in a medical emergency, what I could do to help quell others' fears of going abroad. So I guess the main part, or the biggest part of my website, is the video about a medical emergency about a student who had studied abroad in Vienna and had the mumps and had to go to the hospital. And I think, going to the hospital in a foreign country it's a very scary experience. And the study abroad office does provide a decent amount of resources, but at the end of the day, they can't do anything if you are thousands of miles away and you're in the hospital. So really what I think it comes down to, with if you do end up in the hospital, not what you can do from there, but I think it's more about what you did to get in there. You obviously cannot control everything while you're abroad, but there are things that you can do to be safer and to be healthier. And I think people definitely need to be more conscious of a lot of things when they're abroad. Alcohol being a huge, huge factor. In talking to Andrea Bordeaux, I was really trying to get at, every sort of issue possible. Andrea Bordeaux is the assistant director of international health and safety at the University of Illinois. She was trying to get at I was trying to get at every potential problem, and it just kept coming back to the same thing with her, that a lot of it stems from alcohol, and just a lot of it stems from, besides alcohol, just people making poor choices. So my next graphic, the next aspect of my website is a graph, and I did a survey of a bunch of pretty much everyone, as many people as I could find, of a couple different things about their time abroad, and I ended up making a pie chart of what people responded with as their biggest health and safety concerns while abroad. And the motivation for doing this graphic was, I put the medical emergency video up, but it can only cover so much. So I was thinking, well, if I was a student, I would watch that video and say, okay, well, great. What would happen if anything else happened to me where I didn't need to go to the hospital, or it wasn't mumps, it was something like a broken leg, or the Jack in the video was easily able to go to the hospital. So I just thought I should cover more ground, and so I did the graphic. So if a student's thinking, well, what about other things, they can look and see at the graphic what other issues students had or were constantly being made aware of. And then they can go to the links and resource pages and look through those resources and find out more information about those things, find out how to be safer about those things. But what, again, at the end of the day, what it keeps coming back to is just personal choices. Um, and I really just didn't want this website to be scaring anyone away. In fact, as I said, it should be the opposite. It should encourage people to test their comfort zones and try out studying abroad. So my last multimedia component of my website is about souvenirs. Three students talking about souvenirs that they got while they were abroad. And all three of the situations, the activities that the students needed to do to get the souvenir, they could have ended very badly. Andrew Yakovlev, he was backpacking through Morocco and in the desert. There are plenty of issues that could have come up there. Melissa Kulikauskis she was scuba diving in New Zealand or in Australia, and she studied abroad in New Zealand. That's just another side of the world. I wanted to make sure I got as much as I could, as many places as I could in there. I mean, the hazards with scuba diving are obvious. And then, as I mentioned before, alcohol is really one of the biggest issues for students studying abroad, which is why I had Sean McDonald, and it wasn't necessarily one activity, but he was in Belgium and drinking for the entire semester, drinking beer the entire semester. And I'm not that I even know him, that I don't know how much he was. Not that I even know how much he was drinking, but alcohol is a huge issue abroad, and here's a student who clearly consumed it, and he consumed it responsibly, and he came back safe and healthy, and all three of them did. So that was my motivation for that. I think, again, more research into the subject, and there really isn't all that much that could be done for a student. But I think, there's not much that could be done for a student in the case of an emergency, but there's plenty that could be done to avoid emergency and to just be smart while you're traveling. So that's the big takeaway from this website. Enjoy.